People living at an apartment complex are fed up with what they call unsanitary conditions. Some say the place should be red tagged and shut down by the city. 6 News reporter Tony Garcia is here for you now live in the city's north side with a look at those conditions. Tony?
Yeah, good evening, Sherry. I'm going to give you a quick glance at what I saw. Take a look at the outside of this building right now. You can see it's in pretty rough shape. No window on the door, really beat up. And on the inside, we went into 3 of the 12 units. It's even worse. We saw bugs, loose wires, and holes in the wall and ceiling. And people here who I talked to say no matter how many times they ask, they just can't get it fixed.
It's trifling. It's disgusting. They say, oh, I got this, but they don't got this. So I'm getting a feeling it needs to be shut down.
She's talking about 318 Cesar Chavez Avenue, and if it's not one thing, it's another.
Sometimes there's no heat. There's all kind of critters in here, bed bugs and stuff like that. And the landlord, he's not doing nothing about it.
When we arrived today, the heat had been fixed. It was a problem with the boiler. I called the owner and landlord of the building. He told me, quote, I've owned it for 13 years. It gets inspected by the city every couple of years. We do everything that is asked of us. We went down to the city compliance building to confirm and spoke with code enforcement manager Scott Sanford. He told us off camera the last time the city went out there was March of 2021 and it did pass compliance tests. But he also says he plans to send another crew out this week. What we saw were holes in the ceiling of the closet, in the wall behind the bathroom, loose wires in the basement, and bugs in a refrigerator.
Young adults, getting your first apartment is a dream come true. But some people who moved into one mid-Michigan complex are calling it a nightmare. Kyle Macon is here for you now with more on what residents are going through. Kyle?
Lauren, what was supposed to be a normal move-in process has now turned into one big headache, as dozens at College Town Apartments receive units that they say are disastrous.
You know, there's just going to be like a little bit of a mess. And it was the exact opposite. I mean, it's just completely trashed. Yeah.
These students didn't want to go on camera, but like many who moved into College Town Apartments on Monday, they say it's unlivable.
It had been untouched since those people left. And we went into the bathrooms, and that was the worst part because there was like not even a toilet like in one. It was in the bathtub. Yeah. And the other toilet, it didn't work. Only one of them worked. The tubs were filthy. It was awful.
They tried to reach the property manager, but they say all they got was empty promises.
And they said he would meet us at 6 p.m. at our apartment. So we went back because we believed them, and 6 p.m. came and he didn't show up. It was 7 p.m. and he still wasn't there. And we went back, and it turns out he had told several people he was going to meet them at 6 p.m.
When we reached out to management, they refused to talk to media and kicked us off the property. But one person who I was talking to said they were told everything was fixed, but this is what they walked into.
People in one South Lansing residents say they've been struggling for a while inside their cold apartments, and they're hopeful that improvements from new management will provide them with some warmer days ahead. Josh Sanchez is here for you now with residents who say they've been without heat now for several days.
Sherry, people living at the Marvin Gardens apartment complex in Lansing South Side say the last year has been plagued with maintenance issues going unheard. And now with cold nights ahead, some have had to turn their stovetops on just to keep warm. One man says it's just one of the many problems new management is tasked with fixing.
What about the children? They don't have no heater, and they're using the stove and the stove and the oven to heat and serve. I'm afraid they're going to get on fire somehow.
Alberto Mercado has lived at the Marvin Gardens apartments for more than a year. Since then, he says he's had issues with bugs, water damage on his walls and ceiling. Some of it even collapsed earlier this year.
The ceiling come down and they hit me in the head. I was sleeping on the couch, so I had to throw the couch out. This rug was water like a river.
As the temperatures drop, his biggest concern now is staying warm.
I had to buy me this jacket. Because the weather, I got broken bones, broken rib.
Mercado isn't the only one struggling to stay warm. Terry Catano has lived at the complex for 7 years. She says building upkeep was never this poor, but she is facing a cold reality that many of her neighbors shared with us.
It's supposed to be on in October, and you should be able to feel some heat. We're still not feeling heat. We have to turn our ovens on and, leave the doors open. to provide heat in the apartment.
In a statement sent to 6 News, managing partner Brad Simtab says $4 million will go into renovation plans across 3 properties that were bought today. As for the heat, he says we purchased these properties on October 11, 2022 from Superior Management Systems. We were unaware the boiler was out of order at the time of closing. Catano says new employees have already made her feel like some changes ahead.
I do have hope that this company will do something good for us.
A local woman was awoken in the night to the sound of her 4-year-old daughter struggling to breathe. She rushed her to a local hospital to find out the girl was showing symptoms of mold exposure.
The mold that got her sick was the same one that she had warned Plumtree Apartments about, but she claims that they told her there was nothing to worry about.
Kyle Macon was at those apartments today. He's here for you now. Kyle, what is the situation there?
Sherry, Lauren, when I walked into her apartment, I was immediately hit with air that made it tough to breathe. I left with a headache and my chest hurt, but I was able to leave. Kira Woodson and her 2 kids are stuck with nowhere to go.
I don't know how long it's been here, and we're just inhaling these fumes to where my daughter is like, Mom, I can't breathe.
This is Kyra Woodson describing the dire situation in her home at Plumtree Apartments. For months, she and her 2 children were breathing in harmful mold, but she tells 6 News her apartment complex claims they did a mold test, but they were wrong.
I had to wake up with my daughter not breathing. It was the most scary part. And I didn't know why, but Plumtree says that they conducted a test, which would have meant that you guys knew all along if the test was conducted.
After receiving news at the hospital that her daughter was showing symptoms of mold exposure, she took matters into her own hands and paid $500 to get someone to test the mold. When she got the results, she was told she had to leave immediately.
He has said that there were 11 different toxic molds found in my home, and 2 of them aren't even supposed to be in a residential property. And all of them were found in my daughter's bedroom where she was inhaling everything.
Her 4-year-old daughter already has asthma, but now she's stuck doing breathing treatments every 4 hours. But still, Plumtree hasn't tried to relocate them, leaving the family homeless.
They haven't even followed up with us yet to tell us to relocate us, and they have right now on they're on their website 4 different properties available.
Make matters worse, all of her belongings must stay in the apartment.
The spores are so deep embedded to where if we take them to our new house, whenever we get one, it's so embedded in there that basically I'm transferring mold from one spot to a new spot.
People at a Lansing apartment complex say they've had enough. Their homes are infested with roaches, and the entire complex is a mess. It is our top story at 6. Thank you for joining us. I'm Sherry Jones. Lauren Thompson is off tonight. People at Marvin Gardens in Lansing say they're living in conditions that no one should. Bugs climbing out of refrigerators and cabinets, no locks on any of the entrances, and there are homeless people sleeping in the hallways. Our Kyle Macon was at the apartment and is here for you now with more on this. Kyle?
Sherry, when I arrived at Marvin Gardens, people began to shout out their windows. All of them wanted to show us their living conditions. When I walked in, I was shocked with what I saw. Urine stains in the hallways, and we opened up a cupboard. Dozens of cockroaches came running out.
Yep. Look at that. Look. And then I close this.
This was just one of the many apartment units we saw infested with bugs.
They started going from my kitchen into my front room, bathroom. Now they were all over the place. They just started forming lots of them. I mean, up in the ceilings, and they were just all over it.
Deborah Bentley lives at Marvin Gardens with her daughter. She says the infestation has gotten so bad she had to move into another apartment without her stuff.
I had to get rid of everything. I had to get rid of my furniture. You know, I couldn't take none of my clothes. I couldn't take none of my belongings.
To make matters worse, the people say they feel scared for their safety, as anyone can come into the building. When I first showed up, a man warned me to not go inside alone, saying if I did, I might be shot.
Somebody tried to come through my door. I mean, twisting the knob and everything. They had the key and everything. If I was here by myself, there's no telling what might have happened.
Says this is just the start of her problems. She can't even use her toilet.
I have to take 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 jugs of water to flush my toilet, plus disinfect it to try to keep the smell down.
And while 6 News was on the scene, a code enforcement officer from the city pink-slipped every unit at the complex. That means the owners have 30 days to fix the problem.
I contacted the management company that now owns the apartment building, and they responded, saying that they have invested $4 million into 3 buildings across Lansing in the past month, and that they plan on making the building pest-free. We will be sure to follow up and see if they do.
They was telling us that we had to evacuate out the building because it was an emergency.
Yvonne Shepard lives at Cedar Place Apartments, and she's one of the many people that woke up to alarms in a lobby filled with water.
When I came downstairs, it was kind of scary because that water was coming out the building. The water was coming out the building. The water was all on the floor, and it didn't look good for us. It didn't look very good for us.
Officials at Rose Community Management who own the complex say a water line broke, so they had to shut the system down temporarily. The water even flowed into the elevators, forcing workers to shut them down. This left some people who use wheelchairs to get around stuck in place, while other older residents struggled up and down the stairs.
If you're up on the 8th floor, I don't think you want to walk that far, but that's kind of high to walk up on the 8th floor and you over 60 years old. But things happen because of the age of the building.
That's right, Sherry. We drove through the Everett apartment complex in South Lansing tonight, and nearly every door had a version or a copy of a final notice from the city's code enforcement office. But tonight, it's the people who live in the building at 101 Vicky Court that are spending the night either in a hotel or in a different apartment.
It's December now, so it's cold, it's winter, it's not easy to move, you know, we have work, it's not as easy as just staying in a hotel overnight.
One woman who lives at Everett Apartments in Lansing spoke with 6 News under a condition of anonymity after her apartment, along with 7 others, were locked after failing to meet code requirements. She says it's not the first time the complex had issues with the city. Last year, she says the building lacked working smoke detectors in the hallway or up-to-date fire extinguishers. Earlier this year, she says a code enforcement officer left a notice because of sewage backup issues.
We were all kind of left in the dark as far as knowing what was happening and how bad the basement was at the time. They had the doors locked, so you couldn't go down there until a few months ago. They opened the doors up and left them open so you could go down there and see how bad it was.
She says the unfinished basement had what looked like mold growing on the walls, leaving a smell throughout the building. A City of Lansing spokesperson says in an email that the property owner, Superior Management Systems, said they would fix the building issues after previously getting pink tagged for health and safety issues by code enforcement officers. But another visit today showed that didn't happen. He says the landlord offered to put people in a hotel for the night with a long-term plan to find them safer units. In a statement, a member of Superior Management Systems did not say why the building closed, but did say we are committed and diligently working with the City of Lansing to approve the building permit application and resolution of compliance items. For one tenant, she says it's frustrating to be caught between her landlord and the city.
I mean, if we had to move out and we had a couple days even, that would have been better than giving us a couple hours.
A city official says that the management company needs to share plans on how they'll fix the much-needed repairs in a meeting set with complex owners tomorrow. Sherry? Now, while some apartment owners say they are fixing the problem, one woman I spoke with says it's exhausting waiting for a change.
I'm hoping that they can get the bigger things taken care of, like the heat and everything. Because right now, I don't even gonna lie, there's a lot of people moving because they don't feel that they're doing their job. And sorry to say it, I'm one of them.
Faith Morehart lives at Marvin Gardens Apartments in Lansing. She says problems started well before last week's storm. Morehart says she layered up in coats and blankets until the heat came back on today. While she's glad to see some progress under new management, she's worried about the rest of winter.
And then there's some people in here that have kids. I don't know how they did it. And the main reason I'm worried about, because if I'm cold, and I also know it's dangerous to the kids because some of them are like 2 months old and under. So what's it going to be like for them without no heat?
A few residents who spoke to 6 News off camera say they also had little to no heat. One man even claims his apartment flooded yesterday. In an email, managers with Simtom Management confirmed heating and leaking issues. They say contractors were brought in to repair both issues yesterday and today. This comes weeks after several units were pink tagged by City of Lansing officials, citing code compliance issues.
We did email the Ohio-based management company for Silverstone, as well as emailed the office and called the maintenance line. We have yet to hear back. As for Marvin Gardens, owners owners say that those code issues have been fixed with a new inspection scheduled.